Salford is a city in the meander of the River Irwell. The river forms a boundary with Manchester to the east, and people from Salford really don't like to be called Mancunians. Salford has a very interesting history. Built on the textile industry, it was known for weaving cotton and silk. It's also home to lots of firsts. It was the first place in the country to have a free public library, and the first to have gas lamps in the streets. Around the industry, lots of areas developed like Odsall, Pendleton, Broughton and Kersal, and lots of people lived in terraced houses in little communities. These are the voices of people who grew up in these areas during the last century.
Families of 3 upwards would live in a house with 1 bedroom, 1 kitchen, 1 living room. And if they had another room, a bedroom, they didn't use that bedroom except on Sunday when they had Sunday tea there. Everybody had an aspidestra. It was a big plant that tolerated the dark and the dryness of being grown in a house. And they used to grow these aspidestras as big as they could. Hence the song by Gracie Field, the biggest aspidestra in the world.
In the old days, few people had a telephone, so if you wanted to see somebody, you had to go and see them, or you had to write a letter.
We had a cold water tap. I mean, my mum washed our clothes in the tin bath that we used to have and then hang them out on the line, and sometimes they'd be solid by the time, especially in the winter. And we even had a knocker-upper in our street who knocked everyone up for work. That's great.
Neighbourhood, it's like an extended family really.
The people made the neighbourhood.
A community where people lived together, worked together and enjoyed themselves, going out together. Lots of friends were made in the streets round where you lived, and most of those are still friends today.
When I was young, mainly families were large families, and everybody looked after each other. You knew them by name, you knew where they lived, you played together, the parents worked together, and everybody knew each other very well and looked after each other.
The Salford people were the salt of the earth. If you got in trouble, you knocked on next door's neighbour and they come and help you.
They whitewashed round the doorstep, they swept the street. Didn't have road sweepers then. It was the community who swept the streets.
One minute you could have 2 old women having a good old row, and next minute their husbands would go to the pub with arm on one another. It's that kind of a neighbourly situation. I can remember one neighbour coming into my mum's house, and my mum found a note. "Oh, Emma, I've just borrowed a pound of sugar out of your cupboard." Just like that. It was okay. Nobody bothered. You got it back, Or you come and knock on the door. "Could you lend me mum 6pence, please? For my dad's lunch tomorrow." And that was neighbourly.
And the milkman's horse used to come round with my float and deliver the milk. And it was great fun because we all climbed aboard and had a ride. It was great fun.
There was a playground with swings, roundabouts and all that, which was all free to us. And all the kids used to have a good time, especially on the jerky. And it started off slow, but as they got going, and they used to get it swinging, it was quite good fun, that.
Many of the areas in Salford had little centres where people went shopping. They didn't have big shopping centres like we have today. Lots of places had little corner shops, but there were big roads with bigger shops and department stores. Roads like Chapel Street and Liverpool Street, you could get absolute anything you wanted, and the shopkeepers even knew your name. One such road was Regent Road, which was always a hub of activity.
It's overcrowded, the streets are packed with cars, it's non-stop, nose to tail all the way. It's very difficult to cross the road. It's very busy. Everything's busy, busy, busy.
We used to have all these little individual shops that you don't see anymore. Like, you know, little butchers. I remember seeing rabbits hanging outside the butcher's window.
Every shop you needed was on that road. From the Ferguson's plumbers to Glasses, the clothes shop, to Lieberman's big posh clothes shop, chemist, jewellers, we had everything on there.
Land store that I was always fascinated because the girl that was serving you used to put the money in a tube and it used to go on a wire right across to into the office where they used to put the change in the receipt and it used to come back to the girl who served you. I used to think that was fascinating.
At the top end of Regent Road was Cross Lane Market. It was always buzzing with lots of people shouting and buying and selling their wares.
And in fact, there used to be a man on there called Barman Mick.
Go to Manchester, these are costing £50. No, I'm not asking £50.
And that's because he sold things. He used to barter with people and, you know, sold things pretty cheap. And there'd be crowds around this stall and they were waiting for hours for bargains and things like that.
There was a little signal box there and a little yard, and Cross Lane used to take cattle trucks in that had come from Holyhead the day before.
And then they'd herd them down Cross Lane. One day they didn't, they'd not been milked, the cows, and they came down Edgerton Street and down our street. We would have all been killed if the neighbours hadn't have grabbed 2, 3 kids and thrown them in the houses. All the milk was everywhere, but the kids were safe.
Regent Road certainly had lots of interesting sounds and smells.
The smell from on the way to school, because I went to Regent Road School, and the smell of the slaughterhouse, you could smell all the meat, and you used to have chicken legs outside and they give them the kids to play with the sinews, you know, pulling them and things like that.
Every year, everybody from across the northwest would come together to take part in the Whit Walks. These walks centred around the church and they took place over Whit Week, usually in May or June. The Whit Walks were an expression of faith. Everywhere would close down and hundreds of people used to walk along all the roads.
They're all dressed up in their special dresses, the girls were walking in, and the landowners, they look nice and clean for a change.
And that was Whit Walks, and the bands was playing and so on, and the drum major with his stick and throw it up in the air and twisted it. Remarkable.
I can remember walking when I was little, holding on to like a ribbon, and people that knew you used to come out and give you little bits of money, like threepence or a sixpence.
I mean, I can remember one year being very jealous of the Rose Queen because I had to walk in my brownie outfit. And she was a brownie as well, but she had to put a long fancy dress on and be Rose Queen.
And they used to have entertainers, and you got ice cream, and everybody used to meet there. It was a real good day out. Everybody looked forward to it. It was lovely.
It was very important for the community because it brought everybody together. Everybody was very friendly. Everybody knew each other. After having thousands of people walking about, it finished up probably a few hundred walking about in the end. And gradually it went down and down.
time went on, the Salford of our childhood began to change. Lots of the terraced houses many of us lived in were deemed unfit to live in and were written off as slum properties. Slum clearance projects began, and by the mid-1950s, thousands of families were moved to areas such as Little Hulton. This went on and on right into the 1970s. This changed the character of our Salford for good, as it wasn't just houses that were broken. Entire communities were broken up too.
Communities were what kept the people together.
After the war and the clearance of all the neighbourhoods, as we call it, they went in flats, some went to Little Hulton, some went down Odsel, some, and they lost that neighbourly thing.
There's no neighbourhood now because you don't even know your neighbours. The thing what happened is when they broke the neighbourhoods up, they also broke families up.
A lot of the older people, I think when they moved out of the area, lost a lot of friends because there wasn't the transport there is now. Nobody had telephones, or very few people had telephones. But they'll never have Salford as it was because we were a very close-knit community. But having said that, I still feel very proud to say I was born and lived in Salford.